Now, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority has reiterated that the authorization of the Sinopharm vaccine is subject to a number of conditions, including that the jab is supplied in accordance with the national COVID-19 vaccination program. The Chinese-made 2-dose vaccine was registered at the end of last month. Now, let's discuss this. We're joined via Zoom by SAHPRA CEO Dr. Boitumelo Semete-Makokotlela. Doctor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's talk about the latest vaccines that you have conditionally approved, as it were. How effective are both the Comirnaty vaccine and the MC Pharma vaccines against, firstly, the Omicron variant, and then secondly, other variants?
Thank you. So we've been assessing the effectiveness of the Pfizer vaccine over a number of months since it had its first emergency use authorization. And so far, information that has been supplied to us indicates that it remains to be effective. With the Sinopharm vaccine, when it was submitted to the authority, it wasn't during the time that we had the Omicron variant. And so hence one of the conditions is that we need then data to be availed to the regulator of its efficacy against the Omicron variant. However, we are satisfied with its vaccine efficacy against all the other variants, which is in the range of about 75 and 79%. So we're quite satisfied with that.
And now, Doctor, you mentioned that the authorization is subject to a number of conditions. Talk to us about some of these conditions.
Sure. So one of them you've alluded to, which is that all of these vaccines for now have to be made available as per the National COVID Vaccine Access Strategy. The second one is around variants of concern, that with all of the vaccines that we've authorized, we do need periodic data on the effectiveness against an emerging variant and a variant of concern at the time. The other very important condition is around safety monitoring of these vaccines. It is important that the manufacturers and the applicants continuously monitor these vaccines for safety and then provide us with information. So those are some of the conditions we've put.
Now, we know that with, the other vaccines that we've seen, a lot of people, citing some side effects. We know that there have been common side effects, but also those adverse side effects of some of those vaccines. Of course, also still a lot of uncertainty around some of these side effects with the current vaccines that we are seeing and we're using in this country. Talk to me about some of the side effects from these 2 vaccines.
Sure. So with the Pfizer vaccine that we've been monitoring, as I say, for a number of months, we were concerned about a very rare side effect of myocarditis in the younger cohorts. However, this side event remains to be very rare. And wherein it does occur, what we've seen is that the individuals do recover within a specified period. And so we continuously monitor this, but for those that we've seen, we see very good recovery. And, we still say that the benefit of using these vaccines still outweighs any risk. And when you look at the rare side effects, indeed, they are rare. With Sinopharm, it hasn't been rolled out in South Africa yet. So our decision is based on data from their studies. And so far, what we're seeing with it is the general common side effects, such as a headache, a slight fever, and these last anything between a day to 3 days, and then they are cleared. So those are some of the ones that we've seen. We do have a microsite that we update that has all the information pertaining side effects, reported for COVID vaccines.
Now, as it relates to, just the differences in terms of the ones that we're seeing as ones that you have just now approved, how different are the 2 vaccines from the ones that have already been administered here in the country?
Yeah. So in terms of Pfizer, it's exactly the same vaccine. All what we've done is that it's now no longer under emergency use authorization. It has what we call a full registration. So that's the same vaccine that we've been accessing in the country. With Sinopharm, It is an inactivated vaccine, very similar to the Sinovac vaccine. So different platforms to the J&J and to the Pfizer vaccine. But again, this is a new registration for us in the country. And then as it then becomes available, we will continue to monitor. So in essence, we have approved 3 platforms in South Africa, being the vectored vaccines, that's J&J, being the mRNA vaccines, like Pfizer, and then being the inactivated vaccines, being Sinovac, as well as Sinopharm.
Doctor, the efficacy of some of the vaccines that are being used, there's always questions around it, and I would imagine Sinopharm vaccine, will be no different. Just talk to us about, having to now get the boost for those that have already completed the 2 vaccines, and the 2-dose vaccines, that is, and some already starting with the booster. Questions around just how effective going for that booster are still very prevalent in the country, which probably speaks to why we are now seeing, a low number of people still turning out to vaccinate.
No, sure. I think it's a very important question that you raise. And you've noted in December, I think we authorized the booster for both J&J and as well as for Pfizer, because based on the scientific data we were looking at across the world, we realized that after some time, and that time varies between 6 and 8 months, there is waning immunity. And so what a booster does is that it helps, strengthen your immunity in the event then that you are exposed again. So it has to be considered in alignment with these emerging variants of concern. And so boosting is a global strategy that has been accepted. What we've noted is that even with these inactivated vaccines like Sinopharm, in the countries where they have been rolled out, there's now boosters that are being introduced. And so we do expect that there will be a submission for a booster to be given if one does get a Sinopharm vaccine. Again, it is really just to assist the population to ensure that we all have strong enough immunity so that when we do then, face another variant of concern, our bodies are strong enough to respond.
Dr. Boitumelo, as we wrap up our conversation, just talk to us about what is currently happening from a global perspective in as far as COVID-19 is concerned. I mean, I remember when Omicron was first discovered, there was fear that more variants would be discovered, across the globe. And as you are continuing as SAHPRA to approve new forms of vaccinations, I'm wondering what the current state of affairs is.
Yeah, and we keep really abreast of the current state because it informs our strategy as a regulator. What we are seeing emerging is COVID therapies, and we've provided an update early in the year indicating that we do have applications that we're reviewing for COVID therapies. And so that's again another very important tool. These are therapies for those, still either asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. So it's not as effective for those who are hospitalized. However, these are therapies that will become important as part of our full package of COVID management tools. The other important element that we keep, abreast of, it's not an area wherein it's our expertise, but we work with the other scientists. It's just on monitoring any variants of interest that emerge, even if it's sublineages of certain variants. Whenever there's information on that, we do need to, keep abreast of that. So there's a lot of work going on in terms of regularly sequencing so that each, country could then know what is the dominant variant at the time. So those for us are the 2 very important elements that we're considering.
Thank you so much for your time, Doctor. Really do appreciate it this afternoon.
Thank you.
SAHPRA CEO there, Dr. Boitumelo Semete-Makokotlela.